All right, and the time is 12 o'clock, and I think we will start the webinar, and there will be more attendees joining up, but let's go. Today, we're going to talk about why switching to Google Analytics 4 now is a smart move. And we'll be touching a little bit upon the biggest differences between Universal Analytics and GA4, a bit on implementation and how to see where you are in the Google Analytics 4 maturity journey, and some other things. So it'll be a nice webinar. All right, and let's talk just a quick sentence about Columbus for those who don't know. It's a global digital advisory and IT services company, and we have more than 1,500 digital advisors serving our customers worldwide. And we who will be presenting today are me, Anders Östlund. I sit in Malmö as a growth lead for digital commerce.
Hello, my name is Johan Nilsson, and I'm working as a digital analyst and is in Stockholm office.
Hello everyone, my name is David and I sit in the Gothenburg office and work as a digital analyst within digital commerce.
Excellent. And as you can hear, we cover the entire geographical space in Sweden, but not only that, we have plenty of offices in the other countries as well. But we work with digital commerce, as we said, and one of our main themes for 2022 is master the customer journey. And today we are focusing on analytics because being able to measure the correct metrics is one of the most important cornerstones for growth and data-driven decisions. So we're going to have a Q&A in the end, so feel free to write any questions in the chat and we'll have a look at that when we reach the questions and answers. But Johan, what's happening with Google Analytics?
Yes, a few months ago, Google announced out that the current analysis tool, the Universal Analytics, will stop collecting data of the 1st of July 2023. Instead, Google wants everyone to start using their new analysis tool, the Google Analytics 4. GA4 is not just a simple upgrade of Universal Analytics, it is an entirely new tool, so you need to start to implement that and start from scratch. And that is what we are going to talk about today. What is GA4 and what the values are and the differences between Universal Analytics and GA4, and also a little about the implementation process. But why is it so important to change now already? It is over a year till the deadline. And the main reason is that you don't want to lose any valuable data or insights from the analysis tool. If you wait till the deadline next year and implement it there and then, and you want to compare data back in time, then you don't have that possibility because you don't have any data to compare with. And the reason to that is that GA4 only tracks the data from the implementation point of the events. One other reason can be that it's good to implement it now as soon as possible, so you have the possibility to start learning the GA4 platform, the new interface, the new reports, and also run Universal Analytics and GA4 in parallel during a year now till the deadline, and then see how differences are in the measuring of data between GA4 and Universal Analytics. So we know about the deadline of 1st of July 2023, but what will happen with the data after that deadline? Will Google just delete all the accounts, the properties, or will it be stored somewhere? It will be stored for a while, but Google has said that it will be stored in at least 6 months after the deadline. Exactly how long or which date it will be removed, no one knows, only Google knows. And what we know now is that it is at least 6 months. And GA4 is a new measurement model, is entirely new tool, so it's not compatible with the Universal Analytics. So if you want to export the data from Universal Analytics into GA4, it is not possible. Instead, you need to think about exports to other systems like BI systems or different kind of dashboards like Google's Data Studio or Gecko boards or other data management systems. And if you do that, you can also export the GA4 data into the same system and be able to compile the data and be able to run it together in the same system. So, David, what is the values of GA4?
Well, as we mentioned at the beginning, GA4 is not an upgrade of UA, Universal Analytics. It's a completely new analysis tool. Google presents it as the next generation analysis tool, and we will focus on some key areas that we really like about GA4. Firstly, GA4 is promoted as privacy-centric. And it has been designed to work with or without cookies. So by machine learning and statistical modeling, GA4 can fill in data gaps when we become less and less dependent on cookies. And also, along with filling in gaps from absent cookies, GA4 has some critical features regarding intelligent machine learning. You can, for example, work with predictive audiences to get really valuable insights about revenue, churn, and purchase probability. GA4 also focuses on user engagement. The new engagement metrics will be really helpful to understand user behavior, the quality of your website, and entrance sources. So rather than UA, GA4 only counts when users are actively interacting with your site. So therefore can give you keen insights into which marketing campaigns are working for you, so you know where to invest your time, effort, and most importantly, funding. Then we also have better customization, so the ability to create custom reports that can be tailored to your needs is also really exciting. We'll talk more about this in a minute. And finally, the main goal of GA4 is to give us a complete understanding of the customer journey, so to speak. So the focus is on the end-to-end journey from first visit to final conversion.
So, the 6 biggest differences between Universal Analytics and Google Analytics 4, and also from our perspective, we see it as improvements. And if you are used to work with Universal Analytics and start working with GA4, you will see there is a lot of differences in the interfaces, in the reports, and other things. And we are going to guide you through the 6 biggest differences here today. The first thing, and maybe the most important thing to take with you, is that it is a new measurement model. It is an entirely new tool. And the main thing here is that earlier Universal Analytics was based on sessions and page views and hits, but now everything is based on events and parameters. And everything you want to measure is an event, and every event has up to 25 parameters. So you have the possibility to actually define every event with much detailed information that you want to have in your data analysis. Also, the page views and sessions is still there in GA4, but it's now based on events and parameters instead. Bounce rate. If you are used to work with the metric bounce rate in Universal Analytics and then try to find it in GA4, you will not find it because it's not there anymore. And a bounce is, for those that doesn't know what it is when a user comes to a website and doesn't trigger any actions, doesn't trigger any events or click around, click to other pages, and instead just leaving the website. That's measured as a bounce. And a common problem here has been that if a user do that, visit the website, but just looking for a phone number or an email and found it directly without triggering any actions and leaving, that will be measured as a bounce, even if they actually found what you're looking for. And that is a valuable thing for you and your company. So now Google has shifted their focus and instead working with this engagement rate instead of bounce rate. And at the first sight, you may think it's like the opposite of bounce rate, but it is measured in a little other way. And engagement rate is based on engaged users, and engaged user is a user that has been active on the site in at least 10 seconds, or visit 2 pages or page screens, or triggering a conversion event. And as I said, the events, everything is based on events, and you can define every or any event in GA4 as a conversion event. In Universal Analytics, there was something you could set up goals, and the opposite in GA4 is the conversion events, but it's much simpler now to set up your goals or the conversion events. As David talked about, there is a new focus on engagement. And if you're looking around in the different reports of GA4, you will see a lot of new metrics regarding to engagement, like engagement rate, engaged sessions, engaged average session time, and so on. Also, there will be differences in users and sessions. And if you compare it between Universal Analytics and GA4, you will see differences in how it will be measured. A user in GA4 is not the normal user as it is in Universal Analytics. In GA4, it is an engaged user. And about sessions, one thing there that has been changed in GA4 is about the midnight break. And if you're not familiar with the midnight break, it is when a visitor comes to a website and visit it like 1 minute before midnight, it will trigger a new session. Then when midnight comes, 12 o'clock, a new session will start again. So in the same visit, in just a couple of minutes, it will create 2 sessions. Now in GA4, that is not happening anymore. It will be measured as 1 session. The next thing that has been a big change is about the interface and reports, and we see it as improved things. And if you are used to work with Universal Analytics and the reports, it is a little step for you to actually learn the new interface and reports, because it is entirely new and it is measured in another way. If you're used to work with some reports in Universal Analytics and try to find them, you may not actually found them. They are gone, or they will be changed with other type of metrics. And also the reports in GA4 has now a focus on the customer life cycle, and you can see it in the areas of the acquisition, engagement, monetization, and retention. And we in Columbus think that is a very good mapping against the customer journey that we working a lot with in our work with grow for our customers in commerce. Another thing that is also improved in GA4 is that everything you see, you may be able to change in the groupings of the menus. You can change the names, you can add reports, you can move reports to another category, you can delete reports. You can also edit any report and inside them add widgets or remove widgets. And if you want to do some more advanced reporting, then you have a great opportunity now in something called explorations. There you have a really cool reports, and I'm going to talk to you about 3 of them today. Earlier, this was only available in the paid version of Google, the GA 360, but now I'm offering for free in GA4. So the first one is about the free forms. And here you have the possibility to build any table report with your own choices of metrics and dimensions, with different filtering and different segments. And the next one is about the funnel reports. And here you have the great way to actually do your own funnels and can see what is converting and where the users drop off on the way to your conversion points. And in Universal Analytics, if you had enhanced commerce set up and all the events in the correct way, then you have this shopping behavior. And there you can see a funnel with sessions with product views, sessions with add to cart, sessions with checkouts and transactions. And similar to that funnel report, you can build now in this exploration funnel reports. Also, you can build any funnels, like if you have a lead form and you want to set up your steps against that lead form, then, and can see where users dropping off. The last thing is about the segment overlap. And this is a cool way to actually compare up to 3 segments and see how they relate to each other. One example can be like if you have a segment with all users from Stockholm and one segment with all users with age 18 to 24 and one segment with all purchasing users. Then you can see where those circles overlapping each other, and that will create a segment where all of those 3 is inside it. So for example, all purchasing users from Stockholm with the age of 18 to 24. The next big change is about the structure and views. And that, Anders, can you talk a little about that, please?
Yes, certainly. And if you have used analytics before, you know about how the account looks. You have an account, and in that account you have properties that match up against the various websites that you would like to measure. And in the properties, you can have views. And the views are for specific filtering, like if you want to filter for a specific market, for specific currencies, time zones, etc. But the big difference in GA4 is that views has disappeared. So that means that you have your account and you have properties. And in the properties, you can have data streams. And the data stream is usually meant to be a web data stream and app data streams. So they also cater to cross-device tracking for those that have a solution that is available both as an app and a website, which is a positive development. But it makes a bit of a challenge when it comes to measuring, for example, specific markets and currencies, as I mentioned. And that can be solved in a bunch of different ways. You can make specific reports where you filter out the specific data, or you can have a property per market where you can set different currencies, time zones, etc. And we have done a couple of different solutions for our clients when it comes to this, depending on their needs. But this all means that it's really important to think about the account structure and how to set that up when you move over to GA4. And we're going to talk a bit about number 5, which is data-driven attribution. And attribution means basically for a specific conversion, what channel affected that conversion. And usually in Universal Analytics, all the standard reports are based on last click attribution. And that means that if someone comes from, if someone comes from like an advertising in Facebook and they then convert to maybe they sign up for a lead form or as a customer, that specific source gets 100% of the attribution. But there are many different touch points that affect a conversion. Maybe they have seen something you posted on LinkedIn, maybe have seen that ad, maybe they got reminded in an email where they signed up for your webinar, for example, and then convert it to customer. And in GA4, the data-driven attribution model has been advanced with the machine learning aspects, so they can, with high probability, show you which channel has affected a conversion in what degree. So that is really exciting to be able to decide your various efforts in different channels. And then we can look at number 6, which is about the data retention. And that's another big change in GA4. In Universal Analytics, when it comes specifically to data with user and event data associated with cookies, in Universal you can set more or less any option of time frame or not expire that data at all. In GA4, you only have 2 options. You can keep it for 2 months or 14 months. This won't affect most of the standard reports because they are based on aggregated data, but it will affect the exploration reports and some of the more advanced features. And as Johan mentioned earlier, exporting the data to be used in external BI tools or dashboards is based on this new limitation. Also very useful for comparing, for example, historical year-over-year data. So what is the next step to take then? Well, from experience, we've seen that many of the businesses that we talk to are in very different stages of their analytics maturity ladder, or the GA4 journey, as we put it. And we've also seen that many companies understand the potential in Google Analytics, but kind of few companies actually use it to make data-driven decisions based on their entire customer journey. So, David, what are your thoughts on the GA4 journey and the implementation process?
Well, Anders, first of all, I want to highlight these maturity levels that we came across during our implementations. And maybe one of you in the audience could identify with one of them. So we have divided them into 4 stages, and the last one is what we all strive for. So where are you in your GA4 journey? At the beginning, GA4 is new to us. Well, you've heard about it, obviously, but your knowledge is very limited. Or we have the proper setup, or we have Google Analytics 4 and the proper setup, but we're not sure we're measuring the best metrics for our business. Or are you in the final step, the step we all strive for? You have GA4 and the proper setup, measuring the best metrics, and could confidently say we take smart business decisions based on our Google Analytics 4 data. To reach the final step of the GA4 journey, we at Columbus have developed an implementation process. And I'll cover the steps and give you some important points to consider when you start your implementation. So firstly, we strongly recommend that you plan your account structure that best suits your business. So consider the structure for your business as it is today, but also consider how your structure resonates with your future business. Secondly, set up GA4 according to the structure you planned, and also set the settings best suited for you. So in this step, it's important to consider user management. So how many in your organization will have permission to edit change settings? And as we say, too many cooks spoil the broth. Thirdly, set up measurements for KPIs and metrics that matters to your business goals. This is important. How this is done depends on how you have set up your tracking code, but we prefer doing it through Google Tag Manager. And finally, the step when GA4 is in place and you're ready to analyze the data, gather insights, and also build custom reports. And the most important part, take actions based on the data. Anders, will you guide us through all the areas we've talked about today?
Yes. So as a bit of a summary, during this webinar, we have talked about why it's urgent to implement GA4 as soon as possible. And we've also covered what happens to the universal analytics data once it stops tracking. And we looked a bit on what values GA4 brings and some of the biggest differences. And finally, the analytics maturity journey and Columbus process for reaching the main goal of GA4. Meaning taking the correct actions based on data-driven insights from all steps of the customer journey. And we'll have a Q&A now, so feel free to write your questions in the chat. And first, I also like to mention a few things. So there's an upcoming webinar scheduled to go live sometime in September. The specific date has unfortunately not been set in time for this webinar, but it will focus on the machine learning parts of GA4 and how you can use that to enhance your analytics data when combined with other data sources in a business intelligence or other external data warehouse solution, basically. So a bit more in depth on how to use it in a more advanced fashion. And more information and sign up and the specific date will come in a follow-up email. So please write your questions in the chat, and if you want to have a talk with one of us about how to get the most out of GA4 for your specific business, feel free to email Johan at his email address here. And we will also send a follow-up for this webinar where you will get a link to the recording and also a link to book a time directly in one of our calendars. All right, let's move on to Q&A. So let's see if we have any questions. Feel free to write them in the chat. And let's see, we got one specific question here. Yeah. We'll take this one first. Can you run analytics without cookies? And how does GA4 comply with privacy laws? I think we mentioned a little bit about that as a focus in the beginning. Shall I take that one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, awesome. So from the analytics perspective, GA4 is designed to be able to work without cookies, but in Google's words, this is a feature to come, and we don't have the specific date or time frame for that, but it's definitely prepared for the cookieless future, if you will. And when it comes to privacy laws and the privacy of GA4, they do have a fair bit of compliance already when it comes to anonymizing IP addresses and not focusing on specific user IDs, etc. And also, let's see, I had one more point about that. Let me look into my brain. Oh yeah, but there are a bunch of new laws as well, and we need to stay on top of that, like the new Schrems II law in Austria and the GDPR, etc. And they have implementations to answer that, but it's also sort of a bit in the air until the EU, the EU and the US of A has sort of communicated about how to solve that in the best way. So, yeah. I hope that answered that question. And we have another one. What can we expect from AI machine learning? Yeah.
We have a lot of questions here from different users. I can take one of them.
Yeah.
So we have a question here. So can you copy events in an easy way from Universal Analytics to GA4? And the answer is yes. What do you say? The data scheme is the same of the data layers in both. So if you have events and data layers already set up in like Tag Manager, it is possible to use the same data layers and the same parameters that you're using there, but you need to do new events that's going into GA4. So it's a little bit of configuration, but it is possible to use the same events from Universal Analytics to GA4. And next question is, how complex is the technical implementation? Do you recommend doing most of it through Google Tag Manager? David?
Well, yes, since it depends on how many sites you have. Maybe you have subdomains, etc. But in the sense of setting up measurements for different events, we strongly recommend doing it through Google Tag Manager. It's just easier, and you don't need the developers. You can do most of it by yourself. So yeah, it's easier doing it through Google Tag Manager.
Yes, good. In the beginning of the webinar, you mentioned engaged user. Is that the same as active users? I mentioned it that engaged user is a new metric for GA4, and the criteria to be an engaged user is minimum at 10 seconds. They have visited the site for at least 10 seconds, and that is actually something you can do in your settings. You can set the seconds to be longer if you want that, or they need to visit 2 pages or triggering a conversion event. So it is not just exactly as active users. Active users will be a little differently in Universal Analytics. So, any other question here?
Yeah, there was something about what can we expect from the AI or machine learning parts? How does that help the reports, I guess? David, do you have the answer for that?
Yeah. About predictive audiences. And I think it will be a really valuable feature or asset. Just imagine being able to know about a group of your target audience that are likely to purchase in 7 days of time or 28 days of time, and maybe you can combine that data with a lifetime value. So you can combine an audience with a probability to buy in the next 7 days with an audience that also has a high customer lifetime value. So these are really great possibilities or assets or features that we think will be very valuable to use.
Yeah, great. So next question here is, you mentioned extracting data from Universal Analytics using Google Data Studio dashboards. Being connected with a data source, will these still be accessible once Universal Analytics is disabled, or will these turn off as well? Here is not the 100% answer on that, because we don't know yet what Google will provide here. I think Google will provide more integrations later on, you closer it comes with the finalization of the accounts. But what you can do is to export the reports you want into Data Studio by CSV exports, or you can do it through like BigQuery to export the data through BigQuery and compile the data there and then send it to Google Data Studio or other dashboards. Next one. Do you offer GA4 trainings? Anders?
Yeah, the short answer is yes, we can. The long answer is it depends on what you need. We did have a few questions before the actual webinar from people who signed up that said, what will this be more of an overview, or will you go into the technical nitty-gritty how to set up things? And as you have noticed, this was more of a not the technical nitty-gritty things, and I think that was fairly clear to begin with. But yeah, we can do GA4 trainings certainly if you have internal analysts or marketers that is working with the Google Analytics. So the short answer is yes, and have a chat with us, and we'll take a look at what will, what kind of needs you have, and what is best suited as a solution for that.
Great. So, how complex is the technical implementation? Do you recommend doing most of it all through Google Tag Manager? I think Google Tag Manager is great when it comes to sending events to GA4 and to Universal Analytics. It's the simplest way per se, right? And the complexity will be to actually do some preparations before to actually now think what are you want to measure, what kind of events do you want to send to GA4, what are you going to use it to, what data analysis do you want to get out as a result of it. And that when we work with our customers with this, we used to recommend to do like a KPI and events workshop that we together discuss through your KPIs and what you want to measure in GA4, and from there we know how complex the technical implementation will be. But if you have it implemented today already in Universal Analytics, it is just possible to reuse the data layers to set up the events to GA4.
Yeah, I think I can add to that. We have a couple of questions who are related about if GA4 places a cookie, and when it comes to the tag manager, and is tag manager the preferred delivery, isn't Google Tag Manager itself a cookie that must be placed on the user's device? So I think the sort of aggregated answer to that is also that analytics currently does use cookies, and therefore it's very important to have the correct type of cookie acceptance banners that fulfill GDPR and hopefully the other new laws about privacy as well. And they are working on a cookieless solution, but it's not available currently. So with that privacy in mind, Google Tag Manager is sort of the easiest way to implement this and measures things correctly. And analytics will also place a cookie, but there are always solutions where you can do server-based scripts for Tag Manager and Analytics, where you filter the data yourself before you send it to Google Analytics. But that's sort of an advanced topic that would take, or maybe a webinar in itself. But there are solutions to look at it.
Great. Another question here is that we had GA4 for a whole now. I'm comparing the data with Universal, but it's not matching. I'm not referring to events, only sessions. Do you know why that is? Do you have a metric that is comparable to secure that the data is correct collected? And I was talking about this earlier. It will be different. It is a new measurement model. It will be measured in another way, and things have changed. So sessions will probably be less than in GA4. Also, the users will be less, because now in GA4 we have the engaged users, and also there is a little more delay now in GA4 than in Universal Analytics. So if you're comparing like yesterday to yesterday in Universal Analytics, there will be differences for sure, because the GA4 needs more time to get in the data into GA4. And if we have some metric that is comparable, what can we say there?
That's a good question. Since the model is as different as it is, I would say that it's better to compare GA4 data to GA4 data over time. And in order to be able to compare it, historically to Universal Analytics, then I think it's maybe not sessions and users per se that will be the interesting metrics to compare, but it will be the sort of more e-commerce or like monetization metrics to look at. How does that compare now compared to before? Because that will be the same even though GA4 measures users and sessions differently, right?
Yeah. Do we have any more questions?
Let me here. Will we be able to use our existing tag manager accounts? Yes. That is the short answer. It also depends a little bit on what tracking code you have implemented, if it's an older version or if it's the newer version of the tracking code. You have some info about that, Johan?
Yeah, what's the question that if they can use the same tag manager account, right?
Yeah.
It's actually up to you. You can use another tag manager account for GA4 if you wish, but then you turn off the Universal Analytics tag manager. So you can only have one tag manager for your site. So if you want to change the tag manager, you need also to change the tag manager ID or the script on the site. But I don't see any problem with using the same tag manager account. You just create new events for GA4 and you keep the Universal Analytics events until deadline. After deadline, you can start cleaning up your tag manager account and turning off all the events for Universal Analytics, because they will not be needed anymore after that.
Yeah.
So I had one question here. Is there a minimum number of sessions, events, or users per month that is necessary in order to make data-driven decisions? Anders, what do you say there? Is it?
Yeah, that's a good question. It depends on the sort of amount of traffic you have. If you are to make a decision of one thing against another, as in doing maybe an A/B test or something like that, there's certainly a minimum amount needed to have a statistical base. But then the more specialized A/B testing tools are better at telling you what sort of that number is. But it's sort of the comparison between the amount of traffic and the time frame. So if you have a website with a lower flow of traffic, then you need to measure over a longer time frame in order to get the correct statistical data. But when it comes to conversions and sort of drop-offs in the funnel, you can start to look at that fairly early, and then of course the data will be more and more correct with a longer time frame.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I got another feedback here from one of you that you got my question wrong about the active users. I'm referring to active users in GA4, not in Universal Analytics. The reason for my question is that I haven't seen the expression engaged user in GA4. Yeah, you are correct. Through all standard reports of GA4, the users, the users will be the engaged users. So that's the difference, because in Universal Analytics, users are the normal users, but in GA4, users are the active users.
So
And
it says
yeah,
users in both cases, but in Universal it is all users are all visitors basically. And in GA4, user is defined as someone who has actually done something to be engaged one way or another. So that makes a fairly large difference in the numbers.
Yeah.
I hope that sort of cleared it up. Otherwise, please ask again. We'll see. Do we have any other questions we haven't mentioned? If you feel your question hasn't been answered, you know, please type it again. In that case, we may have missed something in the user interface here.
We have one here. When will you use advanced reporting in analytics, and when will you use Data Studio? Will Data Studio have the same use cases as before?
Yeah, I mean, I can have a short answer for that, so please feel free to add to it. I mean, the short answer is the sort of explorations and advanced reports in analytics is maybe more for those of us who sort of dig into the data and need to find the nitty-gritty details. And Data Studio is still a very valuable tool to compare data and maybe to build views for specific stakeholders. Like if you want to present a specific set of data for the decision makers or for the people who work with paid advertising, and they want just their data that is relevant for that area. So that's where I see sort of the main difference there.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes. Do we miss any question?
Looking through the list here. Let's see, there was sort of a question about alternatives, maybe. I think maybe in reference to the privacy thing, to GA4 and Google Analytics, and which ones do we recommend in that case?
Okay, yes. Of course, there will be now alternatives to GA4, and surely more will come up too. But the biggest ones and the biggest ones, as we see it, and the ones that we recommend is Matomo, and we also see this Puic.pro and Adobe Analytics. So there is different alternatives, but the one that we have looked into mostly is the Matomo.
Yes, and Matomo is an open source solution that is available to host yourself, which means you will be able to, you know, be certain that you own all of the analytics data, depending on where you're hosting the solution. And they also have a sort of managed cloud hosting version, which at least in the basic form is guaranteed to be hosted in the EU, the European Union. And then, of course, depending on your needs for privacy and data control, you may choose to use that or do the self-hosted version. And we personally have looked into that, and I would say that the use cases and how to use analytics and the data for data-driven decisions is the same, basically, no matter what solution you're using, as long as you can get the same fidelity of data. But when it comes to sort of running Matomo, we are still looking at that, but can certainly help you with the use of it.
Yes. So maybe the questions is running out here. We have one more here that says, will you share the recordings after? And yes, we will send it out in the upcoming email today or tomorrow with the recording of this webinar.
Yeah, and you will also get some information about that upcoming webinar and a possibility to book time in one of our calendars in that follow-up email. So unless there's a super last question, I think we're kind of done. Oh, that's not a question. Thanks for a good webinar. Hey, thank you so much yourself for joining, to all attendees. This was super fun.
Yes, so thank you very much for listening, and have a great day.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. I hope to talk to many of you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.